Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Rob Chafe, Mad Complication.
Wow, 2 in a row for
I'm
Rob.
number 2 now.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We're thrilled to death that you are listening to our show. Where we talk about all kinds of fantastic guitar things. This is just is your pals sitting around talking about things that you like to talk about, but we're not really there. But in spirit, we are. Tony, what other things do we do on the show?
Well, we talk about making corn cob pipes and...
Okay. No, that's the other podcast.
Oh, that's the other. Oh, sorry. No, we talk about
one.
boutique gear for the most part. Things like guitars, amps, pedals,
Yeah.
all the good stuff.
Authors.
We've had authors.
101s.
We've had players. We've got a special guest today.
That's right.
Special guest.
Special guest. Who are you?
Yeah, I didn't get the introduction like you guys did I?
Because you're the guest.
That's what you do now. You are.
Oh, hi, I'm Mark Chatfield.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
And I'm special.
There you are. Indeed.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
We're very
Excited?
excited and honored to have Mark Chatfield on the show tonight. We're going to get into it. You're like, who's Mark Chatfield? If you
Who he
don't
is
know,
and what he's done. Yeah.
Well, you
It's
will know
more
by
like-
the end of the show.
yeah, we've got a long show to get through all of it. So
Now, whether they'll care or not, that's a whole other story.
yeah.
But
Well, they don't care about Tony, so it's,
Yeah. So, I mean, come on.
then I'm in good company.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Todd usually cuts most of my stuff out anyhow.
that's
So.
true,
No, but the theme of today's show is kind of the state, well, the history, the current state, and the future of the vintage guitar market.
Yeah.
And once we get into a little bit, you'll understand why Mark is here.
Yeah, maybe just for in fairness sake, if you can do, we're in the lobby. We're going to go up to the 5th floor.
Yes.
Give us a quick rundown of like why Mark. Yes.
Well, Mark is one of the only people I know that has been there from
the beginning.
the beginning
I'm gonna help you out with this, Tony.
when there wasn't a vintage guitar market.
Yeah.
There
It
were
was just the guitar
old,
market.
Old guitars people traded in on new stuff.
Yeah.
Through establishing a world-renowned dealership. I guess we'd call it
Is
that,
at
guitar
the,
shop.
at the genesis, as it would,
The Genesis
of the,
and the Nexus.
of the vintage
And the decline.
guitar market.
and the decline, and he's still heavily involved
Yeah.
in the vintage market. In addition to still playing great
and
stuff.
boutique. I think it's probably safe to say, all the things that were coming out new back then. It was like he was probably getting those things first right out the gate.
Yep.
So we are going to dip into the wild world and wisdom of Mark and his history in rock and roll and in guitars, trading, buying, selling, and whatever else you might have done along the way that to get said
Well,
gear.
the things that you can speak
It was
of.
it was all legal. Trust
Yeah.
me, all of it. Yeah.
All right. But first, before we dive way deep down into that,
Do you have any announcements, Todd?
I do have an announcement, and this is actually a pretty special announcement. A longtime supporter of our show, very longtime supporter of our show, and guest, and pedal builder. This is Doug Christ.
Oh, yes.
Doug Christ, unfortunately, had to put up a GoFundMe.
Oh, no.
Because his son is suffering from a very severe heart condition.
Oh, boy.
And he's going to need a transplant.
Wow.
And I know they're in the process of that, but it isn't just like, there you go and get out. This is going to take a long time to get him healthy. So what we are asking, please consider going over to GoFundMe and check out. The title is Finding a New Heart for Tim Christ. And this is going to be a big help for the Christ family. And Doug is a huge supporter of our community, as well as building, 37 Effects pedals and just being a really solid guy. He's a dad, and his son's in trouble, and his son's kids are in trouble as a result. So let's do what we can to help them out. They're still working towards their goal. It's going to take a lift to get it there, but I think everything that we can do will be highly appreciated. So that is Finding a New Heart for Tim Christ. go check out GoFundMe and see what you can do. Any little helps.
Yep.
All right? Thank
Absolutely.
you to all of our listeners for considering doing that for Doug. Doug, I know you're listening, so we're all thinking about you, and we're pulling for you guys, okay? All right, let's move on to what's going on in our music worlds this week. And first, we're going to start off with Tanya Bolonsky, the lovely, the leggy. What?
Tour gear. No tour gear?
Have you listened to the show, man? That's not for a little while yet.
That's not for a while.
Oh, jeez. Now I got to clap.
Wait a minute, you just clapped twice for yourself. So
Yeah, whatever. All right, we're going to start off with Tanya Bolonsky, the lovely, the leggy, the 5-time consecutive champion.
There was a break of 2 years in between.
There was for the
Youngstown Cabasa eating
Princess
contest.
Queen. Yes. All right, go ahead.
So I just got my copy of Vintage Guitar Magazine, and there's a really cool article in it. They talk about 5 different amp prototypes or first runs, and they cover the Ampeg reverb, jet reverb. They cover the Fender Twin reverb prototype, and of course a Boogie. I think most people know that Randall Smith basically started off Mesa Boogie by modifying Princeton reverbs and dropping a 12-inch speaker in them.
I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Well,
I don't know, Mark. I don't know most of the stuff on here. That's why I started.
it's great
the show,
having
so I
him
can learn.
around.
There you go.
he's like Ed McMahon. I did not know that. Oh no, that's Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah,
not
I
know
did
that.
not know that. Yep.
So hey, that sounded like Baloney Claus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just heard him today. But anyhow, there's one we were talking a little bit before the
What
show
is
about
that?
Bogner. This is Reinhold Bogner's first hand-wired. He took an old Fender Super amp and basically made the first version of the Ecstasy.
That's bizarre looking.
And it's just like it's the shell of a Fender Super amp, and this one has a clean channel and 2 dirty channels, which would be the kind of the hallmark of the Bogner line, right? So, but even more interesting, this is a totally hand-wired version. Before he used this, and then they developed PC boards after that. So
That's weird, man.
it's weird, wacky
That's
stuff.
weird.
But it's a cool article. So if you're around, it's the
Is
January.
that the Kingfish on the
Yeah,
on the
yeah, it
that
is.
just came today. I haven't looked at it
Yeah,
yet.
but it's
There
a
you
cool.
go on page. What
Spoiler
page is
alert,
that?
Mark.
If you ever see this Bogner come up,
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the boogie thing. That I know where one of the original boogies is. Right?
Oh,
Well,
really?
Carlos Santana owns one of them, and my friend Carl Popek, you know him
Yeah, I know
in
Carl.
Las Vegas, was working on it not too long ago.
Oh,
for
wow.
Carlos, because Carlos lives in Las Vegas, and he texted me pictures of it, and he goes, "This might come up for sale." And he says, will you broker it or something? I said, damn right I will. But I think Carlos decided to keep it, But yeah, it was really pretty cool looking amp.
yeah.
But
But
you know what else might come up for sale is there's a Sound City Concorde.
Ah.
It's a one-off. It's a blonde
Great.
over there.
Is that brand new sliders on it?
No, it's all the original. Everyth's all completely original.
Oh, that's
I'm just saying.
Wait a minute. That's
funny guy.
All right. So you're saying there's a chance.
we used to sell. Well, we'll talk about Lunzars, but we were the Sound City dealer. down
Okay, so
there.
you got
I'm
you saw those new?
I'm wildly familiar with those. Yeah. Well, we were the Sound City dealer before, up until you remember Swallens.
That was before me.
Swallens was on the east side of Columbus. I'm getting way ahead of us here, aren't I? Wait a minute. Okay. I love this clap thing, man. I'm going to do it all night long.
You can.
Since nobody's sitting really here except for us, but the lights are going on and off every time I do that. No, not really. But Swallens was a like, do you remember Sun TV?
Yeah.
They were kind of like that. They carried everything from appliances to some furniture, and they carried musical instruments.
Oh, my God.
They had Gibson there. They had Sound City there. And when they closed, they didn't last too long, a couple of years maybe. When they closed, they were selling brand new Les Paul Deluxes for like $200.
Oh my
You
gosh.
could buy Sound City 412 cabinets for $60.
Oh,
I think the
my.
410 cabinets were like $40.
Well, now
120
it's
heads.
quite a bit more now.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
It's like 80
Actually,
bucks.
a guy here in Columbus still, I think, has his Sound City 410 cabinets and 50-watt head from Swallens, and I think he
Wow.
probably paid $150 for for the whole thing. or
That's
something.
probably worth a whole lot more now.
It probably, yeah, 155 or so.
So that was just kind of a cool thing that I found actually today.
Great. Thanks,
Very
Tony.
cool.
Beautiful. Mark, how about yourself? What's going on in your music world this week? The small potato stuff.
Well, I got my copy of Vintage Guitar today.
Excellent.
I got the mail right before I left the house to come here.
Well, why don't you give me a call later and we can read
can talk.
together?
Oh, I get it on audiobooks anyway. What's going on in my life musically? Well, I just got done doing a God's show, which is a band that I was in back in the 70s that I have reformed. We
With a
played-
Z. God's with a Z.
With
That,
a
that was
Z.
the show that you guys went to.
Yeah, it was.
That was the one.
at the King of Clubs night
Yep.
after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we've
was
kind of
awesome.
we decided to we just put out a new record and stuff, and we started playing a bunch. So we decided to take December off. So basically, I'm not doing much of anything right now except for practicing and
Nice.
and actually building a new pedal board.
How much do you practice?
Not as much as I should, probably. I try to pick up a guitar every day.
Okay.
And I do a lot of noodling in front of the television, things like that. But when I've got, when I'm writing or got a gig coming up, it's a lot,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 hours a day. And, I'm not an 8-hour-a-day guy. My hands hurt now. I'm old. And so, it depends on whether I need to, go play or something.
Yeah.
Then I start
Or if
practicing
you're learning
more,
new material
learning
and
new
stuff,
material
yeah.
or writing.
Yeah.
When we decided to do the new record, we had like one song, so I had to come up with stuff. And on my iPhones have that little voice memo thing on them, and mine's got like hundreds and hundreds of little ditties that if I think of something while I'm sitting there playing guitar, I just turn it on and I get a thing.
If nothing else, the iPhone is the greatest
Oh, it's
contribution to guitarists in the last 20 years.
Oh, it's fantastic! Yeah. I used to have one of those little voice recorders.
Yeah.
The little
micro
thing.
cassettes.
But two of the songs on the new record came out of my voice memo things.
Yeah.
Put pieces together and making songs out
Awesome.
of them. So
That's how
it
to do
works. Of course, most of them are stupid, but I mean, and then I can't remember how I did something. Now I've gotten smart. Now I went, well, this is in drop D, and that kind of thing, or open G, and I have to remind myself.
That's
Nice.
cool.
Real quick, Mark, what's the new album? Where can you get it at? Let's plug it real quick.
Right now, it's at. Right now, you can get it at the Gods GODZ USA.com. We're taking the vinyl. Will be here middle to end of January. It's on white vinyl.
Cool.
It's
Nice.
just on CD right now.
The White Album.
The white exactly, and it will be in some local record stores starting this week. It'll be for sure in Used Kids. I was actually supposed to go over there today, and I didn't.
Oops.
And I know I'm the distribution center for actually just for the local. I don't take care of the mail order stuff. Somebody else does. And hopefully we'll get some stuff over at Kyle's place at Lost Weekend, and the local places always
Nice.
seem to want to have
Nice.
it. So yes,
Very nice.
Right on.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah, you bet. Rob,
My music week, it involves Todd.
man, you're blowing my stuff up.
Too bad. You shouldn't let me go first. That's the way that works.
right.
So, yeah, I was going to pick up a guitar from Chase Gullett. I did some work on it, cleaned up some frets, put on a new nut, polished it up a little bit, and I ran into Todd there when I was picking it up. So apparently I was right. I was feeling that I was being followed, and
No, Todd's there all the time.
Oh, that's how.
yeah, no, I kind
Okay.
of
He's just hiding in the closet.
He's got a cot in the back.
Oh, okay. All right, then it's not about me. All right, but
Yeah.
So I picked up the guitar. I haven't really been able to play it much, but
Yes, I will have posted that video by this time.
oh, so
By the
then
time
you would go
people
all
see it.
run together.
Yeah, so it'll be great.
Yeah,
so-
it all will make sense.
Indeed. Well,
What about you, Todd?
As for me, thank you, Tony. I this weekend went to my pal Chase's shop.
Oh, really?
I did. And we hang out. We like to just hang out. It's fun stuff to do, and we do it around some amazing guitars. Lo and
Behold.
I see Rob sitting here, and I'm like, well. And we had a great time because I brought the 50s vibe. It's 50s vibe, right?
Squire
50s vintage vibe. 50s vintage vibe.
Sure, that's
something
enough.
Like that.
That's enough stuff to Google. It's fine.
Anyways,
We'll-
it's
Say that 3 times fast.
Telecaster. But that's the one that we put the House of Tone pickups in from the UK, who's going to be on the show very soon.
Oh, cool.
And I said, I just want Chase to hear him because, he's building guitars all day and he's swapping them. People want pickups, and I'm looking for something special.
Yep.
And those ones have a really special quality about them. Not better or worse, just different.
Just different, yep.
I mean,
and they
should say
come in
better.
a nice-
They are better than the stock ones. I will attest to that.
They come in a nice wooden box, too.
They come in a fancy wooden box, yes. And Tony put in the P90s, which sound really good.
Yeah.
So, anyways, while we were there, we picked up a couple of Chase's crafts that he made. Well, they're more than crafts. I mean, they're guitars. Tellys, and we put them against some Lawlers.
Lawler 52 vintage
Right.
was in one, and then the other one had Brandon Wound.
Brandon Wound
I don't
ones.
remember exactly which model it was, but it was his take
Yeah.
on a vintagey.
And it was so cool to just hear 3 guitars that look identical or close to it sound so different.
Yeah,
You know.
and even the pickups, we're not talking like a T bridge compared to a Strat bridge compared
No.
to a humbucker.
No,
They're
these are
all
all- these are all
very-
T bridge.
and we even measured the DC resistance of the 3, and they were all within 1K of each other.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
It was
drastic.
really wild.
Yeah.
It was very, very interesting. We didn't tear the backs apart too much. We did find out a few things about the electronics, but by and large, there's just they're different breeds, and they sounded. They all had their own unique benefit that they could lend to a particular sound. And what was interesting is we were talking about writing about, like if you're writing music or you're playing it, and depending on who else is in your band and everything, you could say, man, I can't wait to put these new pickups in, and just be like devastated, like this is not going to sound right in my band. Not bad, just not right. And then, but this one, oh man, so it's play around with pickups, people.
Yeah.
Make it feel good.
Go down a very deep, dark rabbit hole.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially on Telecasters, it's so fun to replace the bridge
Yeah.
Telecaster.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's my first
Takes a
choice
whole
all the time.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Rather just buy another guitar to
Yeah,
swap
you're not
the
just
pickup.
loosening the strings on that one.
No. Snap. Yes.
Well,
Todd,
yeah, I do intimately.
how is he these days?
Very good.
Okay. You know what would make a Telecaster sound even better?
Yes, I do.
What?
If it was plugged into a pedal board full of awesome pedals that were hooked up by Tour Gear Design's patch cables.
Tour Gear Design patch cables.
That was a long road to get there, but we got there.
Yeah. It was. We had many steps.
Yes. And hopefully your friends and family have gotten you some nice things. And if you still need gifts by this time, well, let's see when this. Nope, too late.
Sorry.
Yeah, just take some of your Christmas money and go get some Tour Gear Designs patch cables.
You'll have them by the new year.
You'll have them by the new year. Well, we can't guarantee that, but you're going to have loads and loads of options. Everywhere from a 3-inch cable to I believe a 24-inch cable, and
S-shaped?
S-shaped and
C-shaped?
C-shaped.
So you can mix and match and connect all the things.
It's
Top
a
mount, side
must-have,
mount.
especially for switching out all kinds of different pedals and having fun. You got to have them around.
And the cables are flat.
They are and
like a crepe.
Extremely low profile jacks. So,
Yes.
Or plugs.
Plugs.
Either one.
Yeah, the jack is the thing. The plug is the other thing. I know. I'll
Yeah.
get it right one of these days.
Yeah,
Yes. Anyhow,
picky.
I know.
But you know what's even better?
I do. At the car, we're really blowing through this.
It's as if you
Feel
could
like
read
this
my
is
mind.
It's almost like you guys have done this before.
When
Never,
you go to
first
the
time.
cart, you're going to put in the guitar knobs. You're going to save 15% on your order.
The guitar knobs, all lowercase, all one word.
Yeah,
15% on top
that's
of
a
all.
handsome
And
discount.
and they're already reasonably priced.
Ridiculously reasonably priced.
Yes.
That's what that should say. Just when you first get
Yeah.
it, it's ridiculously reasonably priced. Just go get some. Anyways, thank you to Tour Gear Designs, Patch Cables, and things for sponsoring our 4 on the floor. We don't have Jared. Rob.
Oh, sorry. What was he saying? Let me have a little bit of this.
That's usually what he ends up saying.
Yeah.
And then we have to do it a few
it's
times.
just like
Let
Jared.
me get a little bit of this.
That's what he does.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor. You want to clap?
That was kind of a win.
I like how it's so delicate.
That was kind of
Have you spent time in Oxford?
okay.
All right, number one. What's
Yes.
your first?
It is the Pearl Drum Company made pedals years
Yes.
and years and years ago.
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
They made a whole line of pedals.
Like how long ago?
70s.
Okay.
There were also Pearl guitars, weren't there?
That's a good question.
I think there were.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that they did do pedals
Because
because I have several. And now we're going to get into a really great dishonest story.
Okay.
I lied about everything was honest anyway, or legal. So my number one pedal is my secret weapon, has been for years and years and years and years, worked with almost every amplifier. The only amplifier that I used that it didn't work with was during the era when I was using Lab L11 heads, those solid state heads that dude from King's X uses,
Yeah.
and
Ty.
I did them because Ronnie Montrose. That whole Open Fire album was done with the L11s. But anyway, didn't work with those because I only found one drive pedal that worked with those amps. Anyway, it's a Pearl Parametric EQ pedal.
Huh.
And it's a two-band parametric, so you can set 2 different frequencies. And it was kind of, it wasn't the predecessor because it came out after the first EQ pedal I ever used was an MXR blue 6-band graphic. And the reason I used that pedal is there was a picture in Rolling Stone magazine, it had to be 1976 or so, that showed Tom Scholes from Boston's pedal board. And that was basically before all the Rockman stuff came out. That was more of the secret to his sound. He just pushed the 400 and 800 cycle sliders up on that thing almost to the top, and that's where all that mid-rangey, almost wah-wah-y kind of stuff sounded. So I used one of those in the early gods with a 100-watt Marshall. The problem with those is they didn't have an on and off switch. So they went all the time. And Dan Abel from Abel Audio was our sound man, but he was also a repairman at the time when he and I met. He was a repairman at Whitey Lunzar's. But Boss had, I know it was MXR had just come out with a noise gate, so he got me a noise gate pedal. So
See how
it
they did
quieted
that?
Down.
They did that.
create the
and they're like,
problem.
Don't worry, we've got a solution.
Yeah,
for
we'll
that."
sell you
It's
this.
called planned
Well, and-
obsolescence.
The problem with all the other EQ pedals, see, I told you I do long stories.
That's okay.
The problem with all the other EQ pedals that did have it at the time, that did have on and off switch before Boss came out with theirs, was nobody had an 800 cycle thing like Boogie did. Theirs was 750. Most of the other ones were like full octave. They had 500. So and then it went right up to 1,000, I think, after that. And that 800 was the secret frequency on those things. And then, of course, Boss came out with the GE7 after that, and it might have been a GE6 first. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it had 800 cycles on it. But anyway, I really loved that the EQ thing on the the lab amps. It has an active mid-range EQ on it with a sweepable frequency, and I always loved that thing. So I was in String Shop one day, went down next to the Agora, and I saw those Pearl pedals, and I went, you know what? That kind of does the same thing. And I can't remember who was working then, Tim or Rob Brumfield or somebody.
Oh, wow.
I said, just, let me borrow. They used to let me borrow stuff because I spent a lot of money down there. And I borrowed the pedal, and that's the last time they ever saw it. They forgot about it, and I kind of forgot about it. So
About 6 months later, like, didn't we have one of those EQ pedals here somewhere?
yeah, exactly. No, it's a parametric EQ.
Oh, parametric.
Parametric, yeah. I think it's called a PQ7. I don't know. The one that I still use is just beat to death. I mean, I've been using it since like 1977 or 78.
Oh, wow.
Do you just have the one, or you got a backup
I have
for it?
I have a backup.
Okay.
I have a mint one also.
There we go.
That I bought. There you go.
Yep.
That's it. It's a PE10.
That's wild.
Yep.
So
And
you can actually dial in 800.
You can, and it boosts. I mean, you can boost. It boosts the signal, and it just sounds wonderful with Marshalls, and it sounds great with my. I use Friedmans now, and it sounds great with my Friedman amps. I just love that pedal, and you can, you can change the frequency to taste, which is kind of nice. I usually don't, but so that's the number one pedal.
All right.
Nice.
Fantastic. And a great story to boot.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what we try to do here.
I know. Now I'm going to get a phone call from Gary Wolf going, "You son of a bitch! Give me, give me my $49." Yeah. Well, you should look. They made a whole line of stuff, and they actually made an overdrive pedal that also has a frequency knob on it.
That's
very
smart.
cool. Pearl did, and their stuff was really good. The chorus was good. They made
Wow.
a great big delay pedal and
Yeah,
stuff.
we just had that one up.
Yeah.
The delay one looked a lot like the Fender, the Fender units that were out at about the same time.
Yeah,
With
probably.
the silver.
Well, and this stuff is all, the good Japanese chips and stuff that they were using, those,
Yeah.
whatever, the 45, whatever,
Yeah.
Rob knows all the numbers. I don't. To me, it either sounds good or it doesn't.
It doesn't really matter what it says on it.
Is. Yeah. 4558, 4559, whatever it takes. Yeah. So
Number two.
Yeah, what's
number
your-
two will be my TS9 modded by a gentleman named Vaughn Cost, who does not do mods anymore, but he's still around. I actually asked somebody on Gear Page one day, I said, "Is Vaughn Cost still around?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm still here." He just doesn't do them anymore. He originally did, everybody was doing mods to him, and he did a couple of different mods to things. I actually have two of them. One is just kind of the basic mod where they turn it into an 808 and, make it a true bypass and that all that happy crap. But the one that I actually use has two extra switches on top that one is in the middle, they're both flat, but one is a 6 dB or 3 dB or 6 dB bass boost, which anybody that uses TS9s knows that they have a big mid-range hump and they take away all your low end. And then the other one is a compressor. So it's got light compression or a little heavier compressor.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
On there. Then it has two extra knobs on the side and an extra foot switch on the top above the other foot switch.
Oh, my goodness.
It has a whole nother higher gain TS9 built into that TS9. So you can go between the two and the light changes from green to red.
Oh, wow.
On it.
That's a lot of stuff in a TS9 package.
You should see it. It looks like a little robot, man. It's pretty
Yeah,
damn
it's like a
cool.
science
and it takes up
experiment.
space on your board because it's got the two knobs that stick out next to the jacks.
Right.
Where you put in the plugs.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sounds like you need some Tour Gear Design patch cables.
There you go. Yeah, I do. I like those flat. I like the flat cables.
Yeah.
So those are probably my first two. That I would.
No, as somebody who's touring and putting your equipment through the ringer, that sounds like a very, very specific pedal with an awful lot done to it. has it broken down ever, or do you worry about that? Or
No, I have another one that he did that has everything except for the extra knobs and the extra switch. It doesn't have the second TS9 built into it.
Got it.
And it actually sounds a little different, but I've never had to use it. The only thing that's ever happened with this one is the pots get dirty every now and then, and I have to spray the stuff out. Other than that, it's been foolproof. You know?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Excuse me.
Well, you're starting with a good base. I mean, those things are dang near indestructible to begin with. So
Yeah. And, and the mods weren't even that expensive back then. I mean, I've had this thing for 25 years or so. He did it, and that's
amazing.
It's a great pedal.
How about number 3?
Number 3 is going to be the Boss CE5 Chorus Ensemble.
Okay.
I did not see that one coming. I didn't expect a chorus. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like chorus.
Yeah.
But I like subtle chorus. I've tried and owned every chorus pedal known to man, and probably still own a bunch of them. I'm an effects loop guy. Okay, so I have to run all my time-based stuff through an effects loop, because once you do that through a good loop, you just can't ever go back to the front of an amplifier. I can't anyway, especially if you play gainy. And a chorus pedal just turns into a flanger.
Quite different,
and delay pedals are useless. They just mush up. If you play clean, it's different. But with overdriven sounds, it just doesn't work for me. And so you've put some loops in some of my. I've put some loops in some vintage amps. I shouldn't talk about that. But actually, with older Marshalls, the older Marshalls that you did, it actually increases the value to put a good loop in those, because people use the loop so much, and we use the Metro Zero Loss loops in them. But the Friedman amps have basically that loop in them.
That is
so
that
it works
loop
already
great.
built in.
So I've tried every chorus known to man, and I still always go back to that one.
Why?
Because it has, it's one of the only pedals that has a level control for it, and it has a depth control both, and EQ on it. So you can dial. It's the fourth knob over there is a concentric for bass and treble, and you can make them flat or you can add.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a 2-band EQ on a chorus pedal.
Yep, see it right there?
That's pretty neat.
And it just it doesn't overwhelm. It's just there.
That's what I like about most choruses. It sounds like it's been put 100% wet, even if not. You know?
Yeah. And like I said, I've experimented with the most expensive stuff you can find down to the cheapest stuff you can find. Though a friend of mine is one I've never tried that he's using on his board, and he uses it in the front of his amp. It's an old Washburn one. There's the old little ugly
the plastic
black Washburn,
Yeah, I
and
remember
it
those.
sounds pretty darn good. But I have like 5 of those.
Right.
I've never had
Do you run
one break.
them stereo, or do you just run?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. And the reason for that is I don't generally run stereo, but there have been times when I do. Mm-hmm. And the chorus technically will not run stereo. The reason for that is it's not the last thing in my chain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I make the stereo connection comes out of my delay. So, and what I do is I'll run, I use Friedman Dirty Shirleys. So I'll run one Dirty Shirley and run the loop through that, and then I run the return or the stereo send from my delay to the return of the other loop. So I'm just getting the power section of that amplifier. Mm-hmm. I used to do it way different when I was using boogies. When I was using 50 calibers, I actually ran a mono stereo rig, the poor man's way. I ran a speaker cabinet off a 50 caliber head in mono, and then I ran 2 other 412s with I'd take the direct out into a quad reverb and run chorus and echo on the quad reverb in stereo, and man, it sounded huge. That was my Rosie gig or rig for years.
Yeah.
I mean, for a long time. I had this big rack with 250 caliber heads in it and a Simulclass 295, the big one, big power amp, and a quad reverb. Which those sound great when they're run correctly.
When they work,
when they work. Biggest power supply known to man.
Yeah.
This thing's huge.
It's interesting to hear you talk about all of that, the old big huge gear, and then qualify one by saying, the big, huge one.
Well, these were different times. That
know.
wasn't even
They're
the
all
biggest,
big and
hugest
huge
gear.
back then.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, the small rig, I'm just bringing a half stack. That's the
That's
small
what I'm
rig.
saying.
That was it. Yeah.
I'm only bringing one cab.
Yep.
Okay, last one, number 4.
Well, now we're going to the delay pedal.
Okay.
Which is, and once again, don't laugh. I've tried them all. The Boss DD20 Giga delay. I don't think that's called a Giga delay.
I think it is a Giga delay.
Is it?
The 20 is the Giga.
Yeah. The
2 buttons,
Yeah.
4 preset.
yeah, it's got like the 2 Boss buttons.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
4. Well, it's 4 preset.
And a
It's-
manual.
That's the DD20.
Yeah, that's the 200.
Yeah.
I think the 20 is the old one.
Yeah.
That one.
That one. Yeah. You get 5 settings.
Yeah, because you get a manual.
Because the manual setting is there. And other than having to scroll through the 4 things.
That's why, because I was going to switch to one of those like 15 years ago, and the whole tap, 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 tap. And then I go buy it and be like, damn it.
Well, but here's the deal. If you want that, they all have to do that unless you buy the that TC flashback. It has 4 buttons.
Right.
And the Line 6 one does too, but the Line 6 one, unless you modify it, won't work through an effects loop. And Line 6 will even tell you that there's a modification you have to do because they're set up kind of like an old analog delay pedal, and they're not made to be running in effects loop.
You're talking like the old DL4?
Yeah, the DL4s. The
Oh,
new ones
interesting.
you can, but no, there's all the ones that run through loops have been modded.
Oh, how about
So,
that?
but those run great through a loop. But so my point being, those have 4 buttons. Well, actually 3 buttons to get to different delays. But if you're going to use like a Strymon, that's even worse to try to get all the settings because
Yeah.
you have to scroll through. You only get 2.
Right.
Then you have to hit 2 buttons at once, and it's a fabulous sounding pedal. Hard to program.
Yeah, the
sorry,
user-
sorry, Strymon guys.
No, the user interface on the timeline was a nightmare.
It is, and I've had that and the chorus pedal and all that, and I just don't want to have to do that. And man, you can flip through those 4 things so easy, it takes no time, and you can change everything on the fly with knobs, and they just never had one break.
No, it's
But
Boss.
I've got 3 of them, so
Yeah.
we're all good with that.
These things always
But
remind me.
here's the funny thing. Well, go ahead.
These things always remind me of the early like Tecmo Ball, the
yeah.
football games
Oh, yeah,
and the
yeah,
basketball.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the early
Same case.
handheld console
Same
stuff.
casing, yeah.
Yeah. So basically that's that. But the kicker is I'm not using any of those right now.
That's okay. You don't have to.
I need a different board for something. But
Yeah.
I still do have 2. I have 4 complete pedal boards, and 2 of them, are set.
Yeah,
Actually,
those-
when I do God's gigs around here this next year, I'll be using one of those delays and the thing I'm using an HX, Line 6 HX effects, not the
not
one
the
with
Stomp.
amp models
Yeah.
and stuff, not the Stomp.
Yeah.
Because you can do 6 different things, with one in each of the boards.
Yep.
It all sounds great, but none of the delays sound as good as that. None of the choruses sound as good as that. And
Yeah.
I've been actually thinking about the delays I can deal with, but the chorus I've been thinking about putting my chorus pedal in the loop on that, and
program
taking
it
up
on.
another space on there. But I go back to those things every time, and it still just sounds better
Yeah.
to me. But the Line 6 is a good unit.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully it will be a good unit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Good.
Well, that's cool.
Cool.
What's neat about these 4 that you described is you're not going to break the bank
Nope.
getting any of these and backups for them as well. So
Not until somebody actually really famous uses one, and
Yeah.
then you're done.
Or Josh Scott
Yeah,
features it and then gone.
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, and as we speak, as you're listening to this one is $140 on Reverb right now, and I bet there's a couple that are probably cheaper.
You can
than that.
find those for $100,
Yeah.
especially if they don't have a power
$139.
supply with them, and they will run. They'll run off just one
Battery.
one output of the
9
power
volt,
supply,
yeah.
unlike the Strymon
Yeah.
stuff.
Do
You have
these
to
use
use
batteries?
You know what? I think there is a battery.
I
thing
think
in
it takes like 6 double A's or
think you're right,
something.
yeah.
It's got this big battery compartment on the back
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Well, that's super cool. We always love, and what did we get? We got 4
Are those four that
ones
have never
haven't
been on
here before.
Really?
No.
Okay.
So after doing this for, what are we going, 8 years now? About that, 2016, do the math.
7.
Superhead Wonder
Almost
Break.
eight.
Like 7
Give me
years.
2 pronouns. Who, me? Anyways.
me?
Okay.
Anyways, it's the old Benny Hill thing. Anyways, the point being that after 300 plus interviews asking that same question, we always get new setups, new pedals, new things that people are like, I can't live without this. And we're like, really? Why?
Yeah.
And so that's always a fascinating thing on the show. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm gonna I'm gonna take the steering wheel like in a good funny movie and just give it to Tony.
Well, okay. So this is for all of our listeners. I mean, we may have some local folks, but they may not be aware of who Mark Chatfield is. Well, Mark Chatfield, as we talked about a little bit earlier, is, I would say, one of Columbus's premier guitar players. I mean, that goes without saying. The toured nationally with the Gods back starting in the 70s.
Yeah, 70. The band formed in 76. First album came out in 78.
Okay.
And then we broke up in late 79.
That was quick.
When you think about all the stuff we did in that 3-year timeline is insane. Just insane. I mean, I could go through it all with you here, but nobody cares. So I won't
Somebody
do it.
cares.
Well, I mean, we went through forming the band, being a bar band, doing goofy ass cover songs. I mean, we did some goofy stuff. To losing 2 members in a car accident, to coming back, hiring another guitar player, being a bar band, playing smaller places, to being a local band that sells out the Agora literally overnight. That happened, getting a record deal, doing an album, doing two national tours, doing the second album, doing another national tour, and then breaking up. All in a 3-year period.
That's a wild ride, man.
Yeah.
That's very compressed.
Yeah.
And after that, one of the local regional band, Rosie.
Yeah, Rosie spawned from the Gods. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Eric Moore. Eric Moore didn't. Nobody used the Gods when we first broke up.
Yeah.
He was the Eric Moore band.
Okay.
And then Rosie actually started out being Streetheart. That was the first name of the band.
That's a good name. I like that name.
I got it out of remember those record price guides that they used to have, where they're kind of like those price guides. Yeah. It was the name of I happened on it by accident. The name of a Bobby Darin album was called Streetheart. I went, man, that's a really great name for a band. Yeah. So I took it, and then a friend of mine lives in Indianapolis. It's a booking agent. He goes, there's already a band called Streetheart out of Canada. And I went, great. And it was the guy from
Sorry, you can't use that name.
Yeah. Well, I think they'd broken up by then. I think because the guitar player that was in the band was the guitar player for Loverboy, Paul, whatever. They had that Kramer. He had a Kramer model after him, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was his band. So we changed it to changed the name to Rosie, and there's a story behind that you don't want to hear.
Years are we talking about?
We're in the 80s now.
Well, late 79 was when Rosie first started. 79, 80, yeah.
And then you toured with Bob Seger for how many years?
Well, I still do.
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of happened. That's kind of a...
I love it.
Let me think about this for a second.
And I love how quiet you do it. He'll never see the little blip.
Okay,
That's why he always.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. That's how there's a Grand Funk association with this band, and that's because Don Brewer from Grand Funk produced the first Gods album. And we actually recorded it at the Swamp, which was Grand Funk Studio up in Michigan. So I met Don during that period. And then Grand Funk broke up, and they did a band called Flint with everybody from the band except for Mark Farner, and I went up and played on that record. And so after that, Don and I kind of lost touch. But I'd met Mel Shocker, the bass player, and Craig Frost the keyboard player for Grand Funk, and I became lifelong brothers for, just like that. One of those things where you just hit it off, and we're still great friends. So December of 1982. God, if you people knew how much I drank and did drugs during those years, and I can remember this stuff,
You
would be amazed. Anyway, so December of 1982, I'm laying in bed, and my phone rings early in the morning, and I answer, and it goes, "Hey, it's Don Brewer. You want to come up and audition for Bob Seger?" And I went, "What?" So I said, "Sure." So I went up and auditioned for Bob Seger. Craig Frost had joined Bob Seger in late '79 after Flint broke up as a keyboard player. And then in '82, their drummer quit. David Teagarden left the band, and Drew Abbott, Bob's guitar player for years and years, also left the band, so they needed to replace two guys. So Brewer came in to play drums, and then they were just auditioning hundreds of guitar players, and those guys both suggested me, and I went up and basically got the gig.
That's cool. Now, at that point in time, for the younger audiences, Bob Seger would have had what would have been hot right about that time.
There was a brand new album out then called The Distance, and the big song, I think the hit single on that was a song called "Roll Me Away," which he still opens with that song. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the album was before that. I think the album before that was maybe the second live album, which was called "9 Tonight," which has all the hits on. Has got Old Time Rock and Roll and Main Street and Turn the Page and all that kind of stuff like that. And then The Distance came out. Then the next album is the one that had Like a Rock on it.
Right.
Oh, so
you're probably like a ton of fun to travel with, because then you're listening to radio and they're like, "Hey, the song comes on. I played on that. Yeah. I played that. I did that. I was on that one."
Yeah. With me, not so much. He uses almost all studio guys, and a lot of the band. I mean, like Old Time Rock and Roll isn't hardly anybody from this. There's a couple of Seger guys on there, but the guitar solo on there is some guy that just showed up at Muscle Shoals, came in and played the solo, and then they never saw the guy again. It's the weirdest story.
Yeah.
I am on some Seger stuff. I'm on the Like a Rock album.
Yeah.
And then I'm on a live single, which is a Fortunate Son, which is a Creedence Clearwater song. And then the new album, I recorded a bunch with him down at Ocean Way in Nashville in 1999, and most of that stuff got shelved for a long, long time. Then the brand new album that came out, I think in 2019 when we were out on tour, I actually play on 3 songs on that from those sessions and co-wrote one of the songs on that. So yeah, I got like a $60 royalty check.
Nice.
That's from 2 million Spotify plays.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah.
Well, that's cool. Nice. So that's one side of
Mark.
Yeah. Now you've also been involved with we'll call it vintage guitars. Back in the old days, as we said earlier, those are the old guitars that everyone was trading in on them brand new Fenders.
Yeah, so this is his music retail, where he started working retail.
That's when I got out of high school. When I graduated from high school, I started working at I was a screen printer, a silk screen printer, a T-shirt guy. So you had to ship the stuff. Some of it went UPS, some of it went truck, some of it went Greyhound. So when people used to ship stuff through Greyhound.
Wow, how about that?
So I would be the guy that had to take the van down and drop the stuff off at Greyhound. Well, when I would do that, I'd stop at Whitey Lunzar's down on Main Street and just kind of hang out with those guys. And every now and then we had a misprint shop there. So anything that had a little piece of ink on it or got screwed up went in the misprint shop, and they sold it for like $1. And if you were smart and you were printing and there was a shirt that you wanted, you'd do a misprint on it, so you get one of those shirts.
There it is.
Oops. So I would, I'd like accumulate a bag of misprints and take them down there and give them to the guys down there, and they thought that was just the coolest thing. And then one day they offered me a job. down there, and I actually started out in the guitar repair department. Downstairs with a guy named Harry Phillips, and they soon figured out that I knew a lot about equipment because I'm one of those guys that, when I was a kid, I had every catalog known to man. I'd send off for every manufacturer's catalog. I'd put the pictures on my wall. The minute I got anything brand new, I take it apart. Then I ended up in the sales department working with Ed Whitney down there, and a guy named Dino Bradley, who really got me started in the vintage guitar.
Right into that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So what was the I don't know, you wouldn't really call it a vintage market, but the retail market of the time?
There was a kind of vintage. We all kind of knew, especially through Dino, we all kind of knew that the older stuff was cooler. But it went for less money than new stuff. Right. At that point, I had amassed when I left Lunzar's and started the Gods with Eric and Glenn. I had 6 Les Paul Juniors at that point. That I'd not paid more than $80 a piece for. The stuff that used to walk into Lunzar's there was just insane. That kind of stuff. But there were some guys like Bob Hughes. He was always like a guitar collector. He had a no-caster. He had a 60 Sunburst Les Paul, stuff like that. So we all kind of knew the stuff was cool, and that's when we could still go down to Uncle Sam's, and pull a 50 Strat off the wall for $250. But that's what the stuff was going through. My main guitar in the beginning of the Gods was one of the 1967 Flying V's, the Sunburst Flying V's. I owned 2. They had 2 consecutive serial numbers, 000295 and 000296. And 295, I broke 295. I broke the headstock on 295. And I have no idea where either of them are at this point in time, but they were both Sunburst 67 long headstock Flying V's.
Wow. That's wild.
And the trade value on those was about $250 at that point in time.
Yeah, my experience now, really, it was more late 70s into the 80s up in Youngstown. We had a store called Dudzik Music, and it was the same thing. You could bring stuff in, and everybody was looking at all the new stuff that was hanging up there. I was going in the back hall where they had all the junk trade-ins and things like that, and the stuff that I found there was just incredible.
Here's a real quick older guitar story for you from Lunzar's. I told people about this guitar for decades and decades and decades, and I'm going to name drop here. Okay, so this guy named Bruce Kirshner was working with Harry downstairs, a guy from New York, working with Harry downstairs, and I got it was a 58 single cutaway Les Paul Special in Les Paul Junior Sunburst. Which everybody's going, yeah, right. I know there's some cherry ones, and I think there's a black one or a couple, but nobody's ever seen a Sunburst one. And I sold it to him for $250, something like that. And then he probably took it back to New York. And I've been telling people about this guitar since 1975 or 74, and never see one. Brian Ray from Paul McCartney's band posts stuff all the time on Facebook. He posted a Sunburst. He also has a Junior Sunburst SG Junior, which is cool as hell.
But I wonder, was that featured on the Gibson Stories?
It might have been. I don't know.
He's in like Palm Springs, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it,
okay.
The Gibson Stories. I can't remember. It's like Stories or something like that. They will sit down with, storied players and go through a bunch of their collection. And he brought out some doozies.
He's got some really, really odd, really cool stuff. But I actually sent him a really big, long message telling him the story about, I'm so glad you have this. I've been telling people the story about this guitar forever and ever and ever.
Is there's only one?
We don't know. Nobody's sure. There might be more than one, but that's the only time anybody's ever seen one. And that guitar was in Columbus, Ohio. There's a lot of stuff that came out of Columbus and Cleveland and Akron. This was Michigan, of course. It was a hotbed for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dealers down here. There was Whitey Lunzar had a chain of stores, and of course there were Coils that had a chain of stores. most of the really, really cool old guitars, we can get into the Explorer, the Korean Explorer stories if you want, came out of Summers and Son. I've had two 58 Carina V's, and they both came from Summers and Son
No
here
kidding.
because they still both had Summers and Son stickers on the cases.
Wow.
You
So,
said
yeah.
had.
Yeah. Two walked into Cowtown Guitars within 6 months of each other.
Wow.
And the second one is a really super clean one that a guy named Perry Margoloff owns now, and it was actually on display in the what's that museum, MoMA, in the Museum of Modern Arts. They did that Play It Loud thing there, and Rob McNally and I went to it when we were on tour. We had a day off and went to that, and there was that Explorer in there.
Wow.
And I knew it was that one first off because it said it was owned by Perry, and one of the tuning buttons was changed because when these two old ladies brought the guitar into the shop, had a picture of their dad playing it in church, sitting down playing this
Playing the Korean
in
Explorer.
church. And I pull it out, and it's got flat wound strings on it. You know, the actions, for those that can't see, it's about inch high, action about the inch high, and it's tuned up to pitch. I'm going, we can't do this. I turned one of the things, and one of the tuner buttons just broke off. And they started laughing, and I almost peed my pants.
They had no idea.
I'm going, oh, no, please, no. I had to go home and call my therapist. It was that bad. That's a true story. I had to. Just a lot of cool. There was a store down from them, and it probably maybe one of the same guitars, but there's you know where the Atlas building is down there? I think that's on Gay Street. Down there.
Yes.
It's got those big pillars in front of it. There used to be two stores there. One was called Guitar City, and one was called Levinson's, which is now Lev's Pawn Shop.
Right.
They were both pawn shops. But Guitar City was owned by the Plotnicks. It's a family called named the Plotnicks, and it was basically a pawn shop. I mean, wall of guitars as far as the eye can see. And I can remember to this day, and I know people that I know here back me up on this. It's not just my imagination that I saw it, but there was a Carina V and a Carina Explorer up there, and they were just, weird shaped guitars to us back then, but they just sat up on that wall for years. Wow. We'd take the bus down from Grove City when I was like 12, 13 years old and, go hang out at Lazar's and go down to all the stores, and we'd go into Guitar City, and this old guy with a smelly cigar would go, "You going to buy anything?" And we'd go, "We're just looking, get out." He just throw us out. So,
So it started at Whitey's.
Whitey's.
Right out of high
Started at
school.
Whitey's.
And then how long were you there?
Well, let me get back to Whitey's for a little bit. There was, at that point in time, Columbus's very first vintage guitar store, used and vintage guitar store. It was called the Jolly Gargoyle. And it was up on Fifth Avenue. I think that it's an old house that was a antique store for a while called the Jolly Gargoyle. Two guys, Bob Gage and Mike Bletz. You guys might not know Bob, but you might know Mike. He was the guitar player in the Burners for a long time. Mickey Blue is what the name he went by. Great guitar player, and he actually did one of the Bo Diddley gigs I played. He was the other guitar player in that. Really great guy, who passed away a few years ago. But that's where they actually started doing that in that had to be 75. There actually was a vintage guitar store here in 1975.
And that's all that they were just focusing
on? Used and vintage. I mean, even the vintage stuff, it was just basically
vintage,
used. Yeah, pretty much. That's where I bought my main Marshall head that I used in the Gods. I think I paid $200 for it, from them. And a lot of stuff we bought and sold and traded out of there for quite a while. Then Michael ended up with quite a collection over the years, and I own some of that stuff now. After he passed away, I bought a bunch of it from his daughter, and some cool pieces in there that are now my cool pieces. One piece that he got, that Steve Donnellan, do you know Steve?
Yeah.
Steve got from me, that he sold to that I think he sold it to Mike Bletz, and now I have it again.
All comes full circle.
59 Rickenbacker Capri.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Unfortunately, it's been in a flood in the basement. And,
I heard about the condition on that one.
Yeah, I own it. It's in my basement, and there's this. Well, the finish flaked off, and the case is just full of these little, long strips of finish in there. Yeah. I mean, the knobs are seized; they won't even turn. But all the parts are there and stuff, and it's a really cool looking guitar. It's more of a piece of art probably than than it is a functional instrument. But anyway,
so after Whitey's, you did a stint at Columbus Music.
That
right?
was many.
That was
many decades
was that,
after that.
Oh, okay.
Really? So after Whitey's, you didn't do retail for?
Oh no! At Whitey's, I was playing with Ed in Borrowed Time. And there was a really big bar band around here called Sky King. Did I do that right?
Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay, great.
You should do. Yeah,
they were called Sky King, and I had a girl singer named Diane Bassick, and a good keyboard player named Don Groner. The bass player was Eric Moore. The drummer was Glenn Cataline, and the guitar player was Bob Hill. Bob and Eric had been in the Capital City Rockets, which was a Columbus band that got signed. They were on Elektra Records. They have an album out on Elektra Records. Good band. The singer was Jamie Lyons, who was actually from the Music Explosion. He sang "Little Bit of Soul."
Oh, wow.
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Yeah, Jamie was in that band. Anyway, they have this band, and Eric wants to not do covers anymore, wants to do an original band. And they'd heard, I became friends with them because I used to go see them at the Sugar Shack all the time, and then they'd come down to the music store sometimes, and they heard me play down there one day. And Glenn and Eric asked me if I wanted to, let's play a little bit and see. So we had rehearsal studios down in the basement of Lunzar's. So we just went down there and jammed, the word jammed, a couple of times, and they said, we're going to do this band and we're going to call it the Gods. Do you want to be part of it? And so the three of us that was the original band.
Oh, wow. And
then we hired Mike Adams and Hayward Law from a band called Kingsley Fink out of Parkersburg, West Virginia. And the original Gods had two drummers, Glenn Cataline and Hayward Law. We had two full drum sets on stage and had two drummers. And Mike and Hayward got killed in a car accident. And on their way to Parkersburg to pick up our promo packs that we had purchased. So then they decided we'd hire Bob Hill and not have two drummers, and that's what the album version, and the big draw version of the Gods. Right. And it literally went from, putting up our own posters for the Agora and stuff, down there on the light poles and stuff. And it went from 100 people to selling the place out in a very, very short period of time. But we had a lot of support from from the radio stations. And then that came to us. We got that band got signed to a record deal without ever entering the studio. We got signed on live performance. And so that's what I did in that amount of time. I didn't from the time I left Lunzar's until, I'm going to say 1986 or 87, all I did was play music for a living.
Full time. Wow.
Yeah. Then I went through a divorce and had some other bad habits at the point, and I was broke and had to get a job. So I worked
and that's how
Here Comes Columbus Music.
Here Comes Columbus Music.
And that was even an accident.
Really?
Yeah. I knew some of the people in there, so I just sat around talking and shooting the breeze with them. And I said, if you guys need some help, putting some of this stuff up, I got nothing else to do right now. So I started assembling drum sets for them. And one thing led to another, and I started working there. And that was pretty much it.
Okay, and then it went from that location to
the Morse Road
location.
Then I moved to California for a little bit with the reformation of the Gods.
Okay.
And
Where about? I'm from California. Where'd you move
I
to?
lived in Los Angeles. I lived at the apartment I lived in was on a street called Lanewood, which was between Orange and La Brea, right next to Hollywood High, basically. And then before I moved out of there, I lived in Venice Beach on Elk Grove, I think it was the street.
Cool.
So we moved out there and we're trying to get a record deal again, and that didn't pan out. So I came back, and I didn't want to go back to Columbus music, so I just decided to open my own store
Called?
Cowtown Guitars.
That's right.
Yeah.
So many people might recognize the name Cowtown Guitars from Pawn Stars.
Yes.
After you started here in Columbus, moved operations to Las Vegas.
Las Vegas,
And
yeah.
what year did you open in Columbus? To kind of give some people
92
timeline.
or 93, somewhere around
92,
in there.
93, yeah,
And then I
opened in
moved. We actually had 2 stores open at one point. I opened the store in Las Vegas in 97.
By that time, I think people were starting to
Yeah,
call
there's
it
actually a vintage
vintage
market.
guitars.
Oh, yeah.
So how had that changed? I'm sure, price-wise things changed, but in terms of what people were after.
Price-wise things changed, but we're still, I look at some of our original ads, and the guys from Vintage Guitar, Alan gave me a copy of the Alan Greenwood, gave me a copy of the first thing that we did there, and the prices on some of this stuff is just silly.
Well, I was gonna say early '90s, mid '90s. You stuff was still affordable. I remember going to guitar shows and being able to buy 50-watt 800 for $500.
Well,
You know?
and here's the funny thing. When we opened the store, that's when I first started doing. I actually did one guitar show before I opened the store, and it's when they did the first guitar shows here. Were like at a hotel out on Hamilton Road.
Wherever they were then, it's better than they are now. That place sucks.
It's terrible. Yeah, I kind of miss the Shrine.
Shrine was the
But
yeah.
there were 2 other places before that. One was a big gymnasium, and then the other one was literally in the hotel. And they sat up, like they do trade shows kind of
Right.
things. But other than that, I hadn't really gotten into going around doing all the shows. But I started making friends with a lot of the dealers. They'd come into Columbus because nobody here knew what anything was worth, and they thought it was they would laugh. They'd bring $50,000, which then was a fortune. And Gil would not have enough room in his van to put anything. I remember Buck Salser coming up to me at my booth at the one show in the gymnasium, and he brings up this like 1960-61 Les Paul SG and just immaculate condition. He goes, "Man, I just bought this at the front door for $150." He goes, "The pickups in this are worth $300 a piece." And PAS for $300 a piece.
Yeah, that's good.
And but that was it. People here did not. And I'm sure it wasn't just this market. There were probably other
they probably
secondary
hadn't reached
markets.
the places like this yet.
Now, unfortunately, everybody here knows or thinks they know.
Well,
And we've talked
everything's
about
worth
that
it.
with the internet. I saw the guitar
yeah.
shows from the mid '90s to 2000 change like drastically.
Well, and some really bad things happened in there, and all these pre-2008 things happened. I'm not going to name anybody here because a couple of them are my friends, but there were some people that used to go out to the guitar shows with basically an open checkbook to spend whatever they wanted, and they'd just buy all this stuff up for retail. Then they'd take it back to said places and put a new retail on it at 20 or 30% higher.
They still are doing that.
Well, to a point they do, yes. The problem with that is then everybody else follows suit, and then 2008 hit, and I know guys that still have stuff that they've bought in 2007 at ridiculous prices that they
never
still
recovered.
can't. No, but
Nobody, and just for reference, in 2008, obviously, I think you're referencing like where everybody
recession.
lost their
the
money.
crash.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
everything crashed.
Yeah.
It wasn't just guitars. It was everything crashed. and even at that point, a lot of people didn't realize didn't realize that stuff would finally. Everybody's going, yeah, stuff's never going to be that expensive again. It's not going to happen. And some stuff hasn't recovered completely, but other things, like for example, Les Paul Juniors are insane. I mean, the prices on this stuff is insane. Well, once again, some stuff recovered, some stuff did not recover. It's kind of like I was talking to Elliot Michaels down at Rumble Seat, and when I was down there during the pandemic, because I sold a famous person a guitar down there, and instead of shipping it, I just got on an airplane. On Southwest will let you put a guitar in the overhead. So I just flew. I actually flew down in the morning, went to Rumble Seat, hung out, delivered the guitar, and then flew back that night. Had dinner with some friends that I play with down there, and flew back that night. But we were talking about the pandemic and how he and I and a bunch of people thought that, man, it's going to be like prime pickings here. Everything's going to come out. It's going to be really cheap. We're going to buy it. And the exact opposite happened.
I was blown away when that happened.
And that's why the prices are what they are. I mean, there was a point in time where you couldn't find stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. One day there's 1,000 pre-CBS Strats for sale. The next day there's none.
Yeah.
It was just insane.
Now, when was the big Japanese buying boom?
That was in the late 80s into the early 90s.
Yeah.
They'd come around to all that. That's when I really started doing more guitar shows, Texas, and all that stuff like that. And they would just come and they'd just have several tables with nothing there.
Yep.
And by the end of the night, DHL, by the end of the Sunday, DHL's pulling their van in there because they've got 900 guitars that they bought there. And everybody used to sell to the Japanese at that point in time. Yeah.
There's been top dollar.
And there's been kind of a reversal on that since their economy has tanked.
You can buy a guitar over there almost as cheap as you can here. And I know some dealers that have gone over there and bought 30, 40, 50 guitars from some of the dealers over
talking
there.
about, changing things. Guitar shows, when I was coming up, if you want a cool piece of gear, you had one or two local stores, and then you had to wait for the guitar show to come into town.
Right.
This was before internet was a thing. And then over, my early 20s, internet boom. So, okay, now if I want an old vintage Marshall, I can just go online and find one now.
Right.
I'm noticing kind of with Japanese guitar stuff, I'm seeing a lot of Japanese dealers. It's interesting that they were the ones, or not them directly, but Japanese dealers were buying these up pre-internet, and now I'm seeing them dump them.
Yep.
Post the internet. So sometimes I'm like, why is this so cheap? And it's out of Japan. I'm like, that's just cheap, and it's a reputable dealer. But
their stuff's all over eBay and eBay and
I see a lot on
too.
Reverb. Yeah,
a lot. Yep. And what's happened with some of the stuff is the people that used to buy, are like my age, a little older than me, some a few younger, and the younger generation isn't near as interested in all that stuff as we were. Mm-hmm. That's why you'll see a lot of guys, especially guys my age, even guys that are famous and stuff. You'll see so and so's collection is up for sale now because the time to sell is now. You're almost you're in your 70s or 80s or so.
Just dumped a ton of stuff.
See, and I mean, why keep it now? What are you going to do with it? And it's you lose interest, and you're probably making a lot of money on your stuff right now because it is peaking again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, whether it'll dump again, I have I wish I could predict that stuff, but you see that a lot. Especially in Nashville. You'll see, Rumble Seat or Carter or somebody all of a sudden have a collection of somebody's stuff. I mean, I've helped off some people off collections like that, and it's the greatest way to do it. You can sign this stuff for people, and you really don't have any cash outlay at that point. No risk, but you got to deal. You still got to deal with shipping and people and now the 1099s you're getting from everybody. The Reverb fixed that again this year.
Right, I saw that. Yeah.
No 1099 from Reverb this year again unless you do over $10,000 and 200 transactions. You have to meet both criteria.
And really, it should just be that.
It should be because there's a lot of hobbyists on there
that will do close to 10, and
I mean you can make you know, I hate to say this, but you can make $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on one guitar, you know, and that's your whole year. You have a guitar that you've had since you were a kid.
Right.
You know, you got that Sunburst Les Paul that your parents bought you in 1959 and you just sold it for $400,000 and now you're going to be taxed
You're
on
gonna be
the
taxed
damn
on
Literally
it.
just had a visceral reaction.
but now, you know, eBay is not that way, and neither is PayPal. You know, those
Right.
guys. But you know, Reverb owns all their own processing and stuff. And whether I love or hate Reverb, that's a good thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
And you know, they charge you $3 $100 for insurance, but man, if you got a problem, they take care of it right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're just paying for the service.
I know a lot of people complain about their fees. I think for everything it provides, and as easy as all my transactions, I mean, because I'm used to going in a music store in old days, consignment fees were 15 or 20% music store.
Right.
So
right,
this
exactly.
is still dirt cheap, and you're reaching millions of people. So,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know.
The thing I can't get used to is paying the sales tax on out of state. You know, I
Well-
don't like paying sales tax on used stuff
Well,
anyway
well-
because somebody's already paid sales tax on it
right.
once.
Well, wait a
but-
minute, Mark. You're not doing this correctly. Aren't you buying it for your business? And then therefore you don't pay sales tax. And then when you sell it, you collect sales tax.
No, well,
You're buying it as inventory.
No, I don't have a. I don't have a. I don't have a resale ID for.
I think that costs like $10 or something.
well, it does.
just saying.
You know, I don't want to get myself in trouble.
It's completely 100% legal. You're buying inventory.
I keep the business I do now. I just keep completely under
Yeah,
the radar, which
yeah.
is why I don't take credit cards or anything like that because I don't want to have to charge people sales
Yeah, I
or
get
collect
it.
sales tax.
Yeah.
My wife has a master's degree in accounting, so I just she just tells me what to do and I do it.
Right. She knows more than I do, I'm
That's
sure.
very handy.
No, I understand exactly
Yeah.
what you're saying, and that's
No,
the way
yours is the
when-
cheaper way to do it, bro.
When I owned the store, but the problem with that is getting, especially pawn shops, trying to get them to take your resale license. You know, it's some of them will choose just not to sell to you because now they have to do paperwork too
Yep.
and keep
Right.
it on file.
Absolutely.
and it's a major pain in the butt. But
Yeah, that makes
let's not get into the
No.
sales tax
The
on
nuts
used
and
stuff.
bolts,
You
yeah.
know,
Rob.
screw that.
Sorry
yeah.
about that.
Thanks, Rob.
That's all right.
I was just trying to save
no,
you a dollar.
I started it. It's okay. It's okay.
So we've gone through the 90s, the 2000s pretty much. You're out of Cowtown at this point, or?
Yeah. So you moved out to open up the new store and then eventually moved the whole kit and caboodle out there in Vegas. And then
Yes.
how long were you out there doing that? And what were you doing with that store?
Okay, that I got to think about for a second. Well, there was nothing going on musically at that point. Bob Seeger wasn't going to tour. I'd left all the bands back here, and I really had no desire to play out there at all. I never really got into the local music scene in Las Vegas too much. I mean, a lot of musicians out there are my friends, but I just never really got into the scene out there.
Before you go chronologically, for someone who wasn't growing up here, I didn't know that, but I know I'm familiar with the name Cowtown Guitars. So like, what was the maybe even from you guys? What was the thing? Why did it matter?
The local store? Yeah. Well,
The local store
at this
and
point,
just
yeah.
maybe even the Vegas store, like because it kind of blew up. Like at least I mean I know what it was, and I'm not from here.
Well, I think from my perspective, I mean, when you looked at other stores that were here, and this might have been, I don't think Sam Ash still, had they moved in or Guitar Center yet?
No,
So, I mean, if you were looking for something vintage or used or whatever, and, Mark had an incredible knack of having really collectable as well as player grade instruments.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of cool player grade stuff.
I mean,
in
some of
there.
the other places around here, you could buy used things, but you're going to have to do setups and things
Yeah,
like that.
and they typically weren't the cool things. Like, from your store before I even met you, I bought an early '80s BC Rich Mockingbird, a neck through US made something. I bought a SG, like a 70s, mid 70s SG.
I believe it's an SG, but
and SG. But in
But is
like
it ahistoric or anhistoric?
technically it's an historic.
grammar, please. But for me, you know, being whatever 19, 20 at the time, Cowtown typically had just the cooler stuff, the more that the player would want. You know what I mean?
Well, it's 'cause, you know, the reason for that is we were all musicians
Yeah.
and we all liked cool guitars.
Right.
You know, there was nobody in there that really didn't like that. I mean, you guys know most of the people that worked with me there.
Yep.
And, you know, and we all had a passion for that. And we were we were also the only place you could go in and get any kind of money for something if you were selling something. And, I mean, we still needed to make money and all, you know, you always try to get it for as cheap as you can, but we still paid fair for
So
for
to
things.
transplant something from the Midwest to be able to work in Las Vegas, what was the draw there? Like why did that like all of a sudden just kind of catch fire there?
A woman.
Okay.
No, that's why I moved there, to marry
Yeah.
somebody.
Well, I mean for the other people that aren't you and the woman.
Yeah, how'd the business continue to grow, and how did it have to
Yeah.
change to?
Well, yeah, that grow is not the word I would use exactly for this. There was only one at that point in time. There were a lot of music stores out there, but there was only one vintage shop, which was AJ's. And he and I had a big deal over a guitar he sold me years before that. So I wanted nothing more than to, Pete, if you're listening to this, I forgive you. But well, I'll tell you the story real quick. You know, you were talking about, you know, before internet, you know, you'd wait to get that copy of Vintage Guitar Magazine because everybody had their ads in there, you know, and you'd hope to get it early enough to, snag some stuff. So I bought a Gibson Modern from them, one of the reissue Moderns from them, from AJ's in Las Vegas. They were like $650, $750 in or something. So I get it, and they sent it to me, and neglected to tell me that somebody had put electrical tape at one point on the back of the guitar to spell out the words "eat me" on the back of it. Well, the electrical tape was gone, but the silicone ate into the finish, so it was there permanently. And I called him and I said, "Hey, you know, what's this eat me stuff?" He goes, "You bought it too cheap anyway." And that was the end of it. And I went, "Okay, dude, I'm just gonna put a store in your town."
That's what we're gonna do next.
Yeah. So so what happened is, said person went out to spend some time with said other female person out there who informed him at that time that she did not want him to move out there. So that, and you know who I'm talking about. So it fell apart. That fell apart, and then I met my ex-wife Dina, now ex-wife, when I was on tour out there. So I decided to, you know, let's do a store out there. I was thinking, you know, I didn't really research it like I should have. I was thinking, this is Las Vegas. This is going to be a killer market for all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. It couldn't have been worse.
Wow.
And I was literally right across the street from the college. Nothing. There's no music. It's more like a high school there than it is it's not like Ohio State or anything. The other thing there was that I didn't realize. So I get this building, and I go down to the business where they do licensing and all that, license bureau down there. And I'm thinking I was going to waltz in here and get a business license just like in Ohio, blah, blah, blah. You don't pay money. I'm going to do this, blah. It's called a secondhand license. It can take up to a year or more to get. And before you can even get one, you have to have a building. So you can be dormant there paying rent on something. I was, and they do a complete FBI police background check on you, the whole I mean, you know, you never written down references on something and nobody cares. These people called, and some of my friends were answering the phone joking, you know, oh no, he didn't really do that, yeah, blah 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 blah. No, he's really like, you know, and I go, oh man. So they really do that. The only reason I got my license within 2 months is my ex-wife is pretty dialed in Las Vegas, and she had an attorney friend that knew all the people down there, and they walked me through very quickly, but they almost weren't going to give me a business license because of the partner I had here.
Wow.
I had to get rid of the partner. And so it's a big deal. Then anything you buy, you got to fill out. Yeah, you got to fill out paperwork on everything, send it down to the pawn squad, and hold for 30 days while they do a check on it. And if it turns out stolen, the person it was stolen from, if they want it back, they got to pay you what you paid for it. Out there, they don't. Out there, you just
turn it
give
over.
it back. Now, here's the kicker. On the secondhand license out there, it's basically a pawn license, but you're not allowed to loan money. That's what a secondhand license is. Anybody doing used goods. You hold for 30 days, but they're 90 days behind on checking on things. So you put something on your wall, you know, and 60 days later, you think you're safe, and some guy comes in, hey, that's my guitar. Somebody stole it. I go, well, I've had it for 30 days. Doesn't matter. You lose it anyway. So you're not really safe on any of that. It's a big pain in the ass, and it gets very expensive having, you know, $100,000 sitting in the back of your store that you can't sell now, just, you know, because you're waiting on that. So
and then
that
when you do sell it, you almost hope you sell it internet or sell it right away.
Once you sell it to somebody, let's say I sell you a guitar that Joe Blow comes up to you in a bar and says, hey, that was my guitar. It was stolen, you know, and before he punches you, you know, you go, no, I bought this guitar. It's called third party harmless. So you technically own the guitar at that point, and he's screwed and he's going to punch you anyway. But, you know, so that's the way that works. All the Nevada laws are all just a constant what do I want to say here? I had the word, now I can't think of it. Contradiction. They're a constant contradiction of each other. It's messed up. It's completely messed up. So anyway, where were we?
So we were talking. So I said, you know, so moving on to.
So the store was doing terrible out there.
Wow.
Some stuff was walking in some because nobody, prior to me coming there, nobody paid for stuff. They were all, you know, all the stores were like stealing stuff from people. And there were, it's funny, you don't see like any old Marshall stuff or Vox stuff. There was no dealers for it in the 60s.
Was it just like Fender stuff out there?
A lot of Fender stuff, a ton of Ibanez stuff, especially early Ibanez, because there were like 3 dealers out there selling Ibanez at the same time. That kind of stuff. So I would get some stuff in there, and I would do a show here and there, but most of my sales were internet sales or you know, vintage guitar mail order.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that kept us going.
So you were paying for the brick and mortar, the storefront and everything, but weren't.
Right.
Yeah.
And that location was just the worst, being across from the college. So when that lease was up, we moved down to a center down the street from there, next to what Mars Music had moved in there. They had a Guitar Center years before that, and it failed miserably. Then they got a musician's friend store. They had the only musician's friend store, but they didn't do used at all. But they had Mars Music in there. And the center that I was in was literally in the same parking lot as Mars Music, but the 2 buildings were owned by different people.
Right.
So there was no exclusivity clause that they could use on me. So I moved down right next to the other big music store. And that worked out pretty well for a while. And then I ended up going back out with Bob. They called me to go do the Bob's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and then we toured after that. So I was kind of like absentee from the shop quite a bit from that, and that's when Jesse started working for me at that point, and that's who I ended up selling the shop to in 2011. Now, when Pawn Stars started, that was. Let me back up again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. There's a lot of stuff going on.
When I was on tour in 2007 is when Pawn Stars started. In the meantime, I'd done the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Then I did the 2005 and 6 tour with Seeger. the person I moved out there to be with, and I got divorced. I ended up with somebody else that I'm still with to this day. She was divorced and had 2 kids with said ex-husband. They moved to Oklahoma, and from Las Vegas. So I ended up moving down there. I bought a house down in Tulsa. So I left the shop in Vegas, left other people to run it. This is 2007, which was not the smartest thing in the world to do.
Right.
Okay. So I'm living in Tulsa, and I'm on tour. And Jesse called and said, "Hey, Rick from Gold and Silver called. We know all those guys, for years." And Rick said, they're doing some TV show, and do we want to come down and appraise the guitar and stuff? I said, yeah, we all thought it would, be a sizzle reel and be done. So Jesse ends up, going down there, and then the show ends up being renewed and blah, blah, blah. So I was living in Tulsa and on tour, so he's the one that ended up doing the show. Mm-hmm. That's how that all happened. Okay. So I sold him the store in 2011 because I just wanted out of it. Then I severed my ties with Seeger at that point. So I basically did nothing for 5 years. Nothing at all.
Nothing music related.
Nothing music related, nothing business related other than buying and selling, some guitars here and there. And at that point in time, doing more selling than buying. And that's kind of how that happened. Then then Seeger called me in 2017, said, "Hey, do you want to go back out on the road?" I never thought in a million years that would happen, and I almost wasn't going to do it. I thought about it, and I said, "Give me 24 hours." And basically, my mom and my wife talked me into it. They said, "Just go do it. It's good money. Go do it." So I went and did it. And we toured part of 2017 to part of 2018 and all of 2019. We got done right before the plague hit.
Wow.
And then I've been trying to move back to Columbus since I moved to Las Vegas. It's 23 years of being painful in Las Vegas and Tulsa. Sorry, Tulsa.
How do you really feel?
If you're anybody listening from Tulsa,
we just lost 12 Tulsa listeners.
Yeah. Now, if you live there, you know what I'm talking about. It's actually a beautiful place, and it's actually, it reminds you of Ohio. It really does. All Oklahoma reminds you of Ohio, but there's just nothing to do much down there. Good motorcycle place, though. Good place to ride motorcycles. Anyway. So the opportunity during the pandemic, the opportunity presented itself for us to sell our house there and come back to Ohio, and we've been back here for a little over 2 years, just about 2 years now, and there's not a molecule in my body that regrets coming back here.
Yeah,
and you also started another business with that's the best name I think you ever came up with.
I didn't come up with it. I can't take credit for it. Rob McNally.
Okay.
Google him. He plays on everybody's country stuff. One of the best guitar players you'll ever see in your life. And a Columbus guy. Yeah. Rob's from Columbus. But yeah, no, he's A+ list Nashville studio guy. No, he actually thought of the name. He goes, "Man, if you ever do this again, you ought to call it Trademark Guitars." And I went, "Okay," and I did. So, that's that. Yeah. And yeah, he's Bob Seeger's other guitar player. I tour with him and some other guys that play with a bunch of people. That I look at myself every night on that stage. Well, when we were touring, I'd look at myself every night on that stage and go, "What the hell am I doing up here with these guys?"
That's awesome. That's the dream, though, to always feel like you're the lesser musician. You're always surrounded by the better players.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the first one was with
I live the dream all the time.
Yeah,
well, we know that's true.
I got to look at Billy Payne and Kenny Arnoff all night for a year. I'm going, "Oh my goodness, geez.
What am I doing here?"
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what brought me. I do Trademark Guitars, but I still buy
more of a hobby business.
It's a hobby, and recently I've been super, super, super busy. So it's kind of been. And I don't want to say I don't want to say I'm over it, but I'm just not. I just don't want to do it as much as I used to.
Well, and from somebody from the outside looking in, it seems like the stuff just kind of gravitates to you somehow. Somehow the stuff finds you.
If it didn't, I wouldn't be buying anything. But I know enough people around here that I get phone calls, you know, and so a couple of stores here actually refer people to me. And I got a referral yesterday about a 68 335 that's really, really nice. So, that comes around, but I just want to keep it on my own terms as a hobby. I keep some stuff, you know, and I broker some stuff for people too. That's kind of what I prefer to do. It's easier and works out. They make more money on it that way, and nobody's in any big hurry.
Yeah.
So
somewhere in your discussion when Cowtown was out in Vegas and everything, and then going to Oklahoma, how the market had already been
Picked over.
Yeah, picked over.
Yeah.
Do you think the vast majority of stuff, there's no more barn finds or grandpa's guitar that's in the closet? Most of it's circulating now?
I would say most of it is, but it's not over. You know, just when you think it is.
So you still come across.
Just when you think it's over, something super cool just shows up. And I know guys. I mean, I know guys like, for example, Elliot down at Rumble Seat. All the time, he's getting a one owner, you know, family bringing a Sunburst Les Paul in, or he just got a one owner, original owner 68 Paisley Telecaster with every piece of literature that ever came with it. That's just immaculate under the bed find. They're still out there. Because they produced thousands and thousands of guitars,
and that's what still blows me, because I'll have a 60 whatever champ come in, and it's completely unmolested. I'm like, how? And I see
a different way you can say that.
Well, yeah, but that's because we consider
unfettered.
it. Yeah, it's 100% original.
Raise the bar, Rob.
But I'll have one of those come in every month or every 2 months, and I'm like, how many of these things are out there?
Well, it's a lot. I mean,
that,
I always bring up Les Paul Juniors because it's like my favorite guitar, but they made thousands of them. I've got the production records, tens of thousands of those guitars in 1959 alone.
The white one you were playing the other night, that was cool.
Oh yeah, I actually have two of those. I have a 63 and 64. The one that I was playing the other night was a referral. I bought it here in Columbus 3 years ago, and it was a referral from a drummer friend of mine from a family that had had it since it was brand new.
That's wild.
And I bought the guitar without ever seeing it.
Yeah.
And it's actually my favorite guitar right now. I love it. It's a 64 white SG Junior for those of you that
played it like it's your favorite one.
Yeah, it's a
honestly,
great guitar.
You can tell when somebody picks it up.
Here's another real quick story about kind of like that. And I was here visiting for one reason or another, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and Dave Bush calls me, and
he's a local repair guy.
And worked at Cowtown for a while, and a champion skateboarder, a world famous skateboarder. Anyway, he called me and he goes, "Man, I got this guy bringing in a 1959 ES 355. Is that something you might be interested in?" I go, "Well, yeah, I would be." And he goes, "Well, I'll send you some pictures." I go, "No, Dave, I'm in Columbus right now. I am in," and he had no idea. I said, "I'm in Columbus right now." And I said, "I can be there in 20 minutes. He goes, "Come on over." So this guy walks in with this factory mono cherry 59 355 that has, those stick-on, initial letters, mailbox letters, I call them.
Yeah.
And it had them on there. And opens a case, and I see those, and I went, "Oh, my God." That guitar walked into Whitey Lunzar's when I worked there.
Wow.
And I wanted it then. And almost 50 years later, 40 some odd years later, here it is at Dave Bush's place. And it's not his. It belongs to this guy's wife, but it was her husband's.
Wow.
And somehow they got a referral through Dave, somebody saying, "Do you know anybody that knows anything about guitars?" And somebody knew Dave, and that's how it is. And Dave knew me and called me, and bam, done. I have the guitar. I have two
That's
of them now.
awesome.
And something I saw down there that long ago, brings itself back to me. And I actually have bought back some guitars that I sold over the years since I've been back here. That I've always wanted to re-own, re-own again, and
that's neat.
There's a couple that people won't sell me, that I'm, I'm still working on.
Well, we're gonna wrap things up here. I have a couple more questions.
Uh-oh.
So, how do you determine the worth? I mean, do you use? I mean, right now it's relatively easy to look online. You can see what the ballpark range of prices. I mean, do you use guidebooks? Do you use your gut? What do you?
Can I append that question? There's price and there's also value.
Okay.
So that might be a $10,000 guitar, but it's really more worth like a $20,000 guitar to the right person.
Or it's worth less because one idiot paid that much money for one. That does not make them all worth that much
Fair,
money.
yeah.
Right.
There are a lot of factors in there. You know, is it popular? You know, is it something people want? Just because it's old doesn't mean it's valuable, and everybody thinks everything old is valuable.
Yeah, you're talking about how the people have the wrong information. There you go.
Right,
You know, just because it's old, it's not valuable.
Well, my neighbor said it's worth this, or I saw a picture of one that looks kind of like mine, and then
Yeah.
you try to tell them that's why it's not like theirs,
And they don't want to hear it.
So, in answer to your question, Tony, the answer is yes.
You do as much homework as you can, and then try to.
It's all of the above.
Yeah.
It's gut. Now, me, I will tend to pay more for something that I really like.
Right.
I that's a fault of mine. But the price guides, not so much, because they're not updated enough. And things can change on the snap of a finger because Joe Bonamassa played one on stage last night or something like that. That all everybody wants to be like their fave rave, and it makes things like those bad monkey pedals. Those have crashed again.
Oh, crashed hard.
But that's all it takes. So unfortunately, you have to look at. I tend to look at what people are, asking for things on Reverb. That doesn't mean that's what they're selling for. That means
Right.
what people are asking for them, and I try to average it out, and I see how long it's been for sale. And you tell people, go, hey, there's one that what you're asking. It's been for sale for 2 years for that price, so it's not worth that much money. I'm sorry, And
Yeah.
this is what I can give you, and if that doesn't work for you, then here's reverb.com. You go on there, you go on there, you pay them their percentage, and then since it's over $600, you can't say it now, but you could last year.
Yeah.
Then you deal with the 1099.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to deal with that now. I mean, that know about it. That's actually a good buying thing for anybody that's buying and selling goods.
Well, that leads me to my next question. I mean, where do you think the guitar show market is going? Because a lot of people, if you go to a guitar show, there's lots. It's one of the only places left, I think, that you see piles of cash being exchanged.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one way for some people. Maybe they have a valuable instrument. Maybe they won't get as much, but they'll have a cash settlement.
It depends on the show you go to, and as you know from being at guitar shows a lot, the lion's share of those deals are dealer to dealer, not public.
Before the doors even open.
Before the doors even open, yep. Out in the parking lot, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
You rarely see people walk in with anything anymore. Not to say it doesn't happen, it does. And some people, make appointments with people that bring stuff in, but it's mostly dealer to dealer. And then they have the dealers have a network of people that they call or they're looking for something like that. I think it's got the prices, every man, though. The prices of everything have gone up. You thought people wouldn't buy cars when a year ago you were paying more than sticker for anything and paying a sticker price for a used car.
Yeah.
People thought people wouldn't buy, but they are. So, I mean, I don't see an end in sight at this point. It's like, can Les Paul Juniors become $20,000? I keep bringing up Les Paul Juniors.
That's your
The thing,
favorite.
like,
we talk
but
about
like,
them a lot.
Sunburst Les Pauls, at one point, were $600,000-$700,000, things like that. Those have settled down. There's only so many people that buy
Right.
that, that caliber of guitar. But the median stuff, the under $20,000 stuff, right now I still see it going up. But I don't see I don't see a lot of stuff selling right now. The past 6 months looks like things have slowed down. I've not been to a guitar show other than the Columbus one, but I talk to people that do go, and they're not. Most of them are not as well attended as they used to be.
Right.
And once again, it's mostly looky-loos. They'll come in, they'll buy a T-shirt, or they'll buy stuff from. Remember J.K. Lutherie used to he'd be selling books and all that stuff like that. People will buy that. You can get somebody to spend $10, $20, but
I think it's difficult looking back on the last couple, and even we were just talking about going out to the Dallas one, and I actually watched a video of somebody who filmed the whole Dallas one from last year, and the whole thing was, it's almost like just going to a retail store. Like the prices that people are putting on used stuff, it's like, dude, it's a used pedal. It's you actually have that priced almost what it is for retail. Like, what am I doing here?
And the other thing you got to remember too is like what I had mentioned was when internet became a thing and kind of, I don't want to say killed the guitar show thing, but it made it much more accessible. You didn't have to wait for the guitar show and everything. Well, now the dealers have the same advantage. They get in, a 63 whatever. They don't have to wait till the next show. They put it up on Reverb. They pay their 8%. And they flipped it overnight, So so the really cool stuff generally won't be at the shows, or at least not for a very fair price, because they've already sold it.
Right.
They're bringing the stuff that for whatever reason in their area can't sell, which then they sell to another dealer from another area. Says, oh, that'll go in my area. Let's work out a deal. And
and it's like the new retailers. There's like the custom shop people we were talking about that carry nothing but the real
the boutique
Some
stores.
of those places, there's a handful of those places, and they all do real good. It's the same in the vintage world. There's a boatload of little mom and pop shop, all over the place. They do okay, but like most of the Nashville shops do great because of the concentrated, the musician concentration down there. And those guys, and I know some of the guys that do that. They decide they need something right now, and they go and they pay whatever it is. They get the prices down there are higher than they are anywhere else because they can get it.
There's also the tour factor the tourist factor, because like, I'm down here, I'm in Music City, I'm gonna get a guitar at Music. It's like you're much more liable to drop more ducats than you normally would because you have now the experience.
Well, my walk-in Vegas business was mostly tourists like that, especially when there'd be a convention like NAB convention there, National Association of Broadcasters. All the guys from Europe would be in and stuff, and we'd always sell stuff during those things. But it's the same. The LA shops do okay. There's virtually almost nothing left in New York City. It's 48th Street's been gone for a long time, but there's only a couple of actual brick and mortar vintage guitar stores left in that city now. So it's it's a handful of stores that are doing really, really well, and everybody else does okay. And as long as you're not trying to become a gazillionaire, Chicago's become a hot spot again. And Chicago music does really well, and Midwest Buy and Sell does Making Music. He carries vintage and boutique. He's always carried boutique stuff.
It definitely seems to be, though, that to your point, there's a division there now. I think about it, that you've got the boutique dealers that'll carry the Sur, the Grosh, the Bogner, the Dr. Z, those kind of stuff, and they'll have some used stuff. But it seems like that you have that, and then you have the Carters that might have some of that stuff, but they really focus on.
You're forgetting about like Oakland, which is boutique gear or about half boutique gear, and just but not boutique as what you're saying. There's like the top shelf boutique stuff, and then there's like people that we've had on the show for several years.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Like,
when I necessarily say boutique, I'm just
$5,000
imagining the
guitar
the Bogner. They're boutique, that they're not Fender, but they're not really boutique. They're not two guys in a.
Well, see, and part of that thing with the inflation. We were asking me about the inflation of the guitars are how much brand new stuff has gotten to be. You know,
Crazy.
You know, it's just insane. Gibson prices are insane. I could never get that. I could never get why somebody would go spend $10,000 on a brand new guitar when, you know, at that point in time they could have bought a really cool vintage guitar for that much money. Same with, you know, spending $10,000 or $15,000 on a private stock Paul Reed Smith guitar or something, you know, that you're going to take out of there and it's going to be worth $7,000 on a good day. You know, there's one person that wants that guitar and you're him. Right? You are the market. You know? So I never got that. I really didn't. You know, just like, you know, somebody will call me and go, hey, can you come appraise my collection? And you go over, you know, and it's 3 current Gibson R9s and blah, blah, blah. I said, I can't, you know, there is no appraisal for that. Just go on and see how much people are just
right, they're all
see
over
how much
the place.
they are.
Yeah,
you know, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, end of story. So I call that an accumulation, not a collection. That's
a nice way of putting it.
But yeah, that's
I've got one of those.
all of those all those things factor in, and you know, the inflation on new stuff just can't help but make the old stuff keep going. You know, you know, you're gonna go spend $4,000 on a used something that you used to be able to, or a brand new something that you used to be able to buy a great used something, you know, for less than that. But it's not that way anymore.
Yeah, I guess the thing is though, you know, they're not making any more 65 deluxe reverbs. They're not making any more, you know. So it is
well,
what
and
it
then
is.
you get into now you get it. I know we're going way over time here.
Are you happy about that?
You also get into the thing though with you know, if you want to get into a debate about that kind of stuff, is that stuff really that much better? And the answer to that question is no, because I've owned as many shitty pre-CBS Stratocasters as I have really good ones. Right. Just like all PAF pickups do not sound good. I'm sorry. And there are new amplifiers out there that'll sound as good or better than anything old. It's just the way it is. Now, if you feel like you got to have the old stuff and you owned one as a kid or something like that, then that's fine. But there's no guarantee when you're buying this stuff that it's the be-all, end-all. And I mean, you know, do I play some vintage stuff on stage? I do. But mostly I don't. You know, mostly I play newer stuff because I can get the same result out of that guitar. And there are 2 guys in the audience that I'm pointing to right now that know I'm playing a cool vintage guitar. The rest of people don't even know if I'm playing guitar or bass. You know, they don't, and they don't care. So, you know, it's, I don't even know where I was going with that, but you know, older is not necessarily better. Then you got Jim Irsay, the guy from the Colts, you know, that has a $1 billion guitar collection. You know, he's paid like $1.7 million for the Fool guitar.
Oh my God.
You know, he owns virtually every cool guitar that's, you know, that anybody ever used. But and that's cool, and he shows the stuff off. You know, he does shows with it. That's one thing. You know, and he can.
Well, somebody's got to own it. So
yeah, exactly.
You know?
And the stuff is coming up for sale because people are going, well, you know, let's sell this now because we're at the top of the heap and there's somebody out there that's got some money. But where does it go from there? You know, does it stay in a permanent display? Once again, the generation coming up, some of the people, I mean, there's some really cool bands out now like Dirty Honey, you know, bands like that are using old gear again and making that whole thing happen. But that it's starting to happen again, but the generation prior to that didn't give a good rat's ass about vintage guitars, period.
Well, no, and now the thing is it's gone so high in price that where, you know, the 20-year-olds, if they want to get into vintage stuff, it's a huge gap. It's not like they're getting stuff from the last generation. They have to go back 4 or 5 generations now at this price point.
Right.
You know.
Right. Or, you know, and that's why a company like Gibson can justify, you know, a Murphy aged R9 being $14,000 because the real thing's going to cost you $400,000.
Yeah.
So, and that's their justification for that.
If you want to say Gibson and be,
yeah, exactly. Okay.
All right.
We've solved the problems of the world.
Yes. Let's all open up vintage guitar stores.
oh God, no.
Yeah. Legitimately, though, I love the fact that we could go for hours more talking with you. I really appreciate that about you being here. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'm good for more hours right now. But, not without
Maybe not right now.
Not without a nap included,
Yeah.
Well, we
next
could
time.
hobble him, and then he'd be here for the next couple of shows.
You've seen Misery, right? All right, we got one more little thing here we're gonna do.
Yes. So at this point of the show, there's a little game we like to play called Would You Rather?
You got to work on that, man. It's rough.
Well, no one can.
What are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing everything else. What are you talking about?
you could just have him do it once and sample it, then you
Yeah.
just
That's
have
what-
it.
Well, that's
That's
what
what
we
I
need. That's what we need to do.
I said that
I
years
know.
ago, but
Okay.
Normally, our buddy Jared does this, but he is.
I will make a point of doing that. Okay,
Yeah,
everybody.
sample
I will-
Jared. That way he's always
I will
on the
just have
show.
sample. I can go.
There,
you
that would
go.
be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go,
Yeah.
You got a button for it.
All right. go.
So this Would You Rather is brought to us by our good friend Bruce Bacon.
Yes, Brucey.
I get hungry every time I hear that name.
Bruce.
No,
Yeah, there you
Bacon.
go.
Bacon. So he sent us a holiday-themed Would You Rather.
Yeah.
You know that. Everyone loves the Bing and Bowie Little Drummer Boy. The duet. that they-
Iconic.
Yes.
Except Bing.
Bing didn't much like
Bing
it.
didn't much like it.
He
no.
didn't quite
Yeah.
get
No.
David.
Neither did my mom. Yeah. I remember we were doing the Christmas tree, and I looked at her, and she had her nose all wrinkled up, and I was like, "What?" Because I thought it was cool.
What's with the weird
Yeah,
guy on
he's
Bing
weird.
show?
And then I was like,
It's like Tom Jones and
he's
Janis
cool.
Joplin. That was a good one, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is this iconic pop culture moment
Yes.
has one flaw.
There's no guitar.
There's no guitar. So, as guitar
Yes.
knobs, you have access to the time machine.
I love the time machine.
And you can rectify this problem by replacing Bowie and the song.
Bob. Moan and Rob perked up when you said rectify. He's like,
AC, DC.
yeah.
I like to rectify.
Come on.
Back to
keep
your
going.
thing. Keep going.
So, the would you rather that Bruce poses to us. Now, Bing stays. Of course, it's his show.
Okay.
Has to. Would you rather have Bing duet with Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer playing I Believe in Father Christmas, or with Buck Owens and his Buckaroos playing Santa Looked a Lot Like Daddy?
Wow. Those are the only two choices?
Those are.
Well, if you can come up with a better one.
This is my most favorite segment of the show. Sarcasm inserted here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's always like, those are the choices.
Why don't you just sip this one out, okay?
We could throw the Kinks in there, too.
No.
No, man. Slade did a great Christmas song. I just heard it on the radio tonight.
Oh, really? What
Yeah.
was it?
I can't think of the name of it. Something Christmas. I don't know.
Something Christmas.
Yeah, but Slade. Yeah, no,
convenient.
Slade did. Slade did. I'd rather see him with Slade.
Yeah.
I think he'd be begging for Bowie after
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Little naughty holder.
So let's start off with Tony, and we'll go around the ring here. Go ahead.
I got to go with Buck and the Buckaroos. Come on. Who doesn't love a song named Santa Looked a Lot Like Daddy?
That's fair. That's
I love
fair.
it. And
All right.
he got some good twanging going on.
Yeah.
there.
Rob.
Buck.
Buck. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going with Buck.
Todd.
Todd?
Yeah. Now, I think one of the things that makes that kind of a special piece, really, is that it feels almost a little ethereal. Bowie lends that to it a little bit, and it's like it just it's dreamlike, and it makes you stop and listen. Whatever they did, it makes you listen. He has a little bit of that quality to his music as well.
Who, Greg Lake?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought, well, it would probably sound better But I want to see Buck Owens play. Let's be honest.
I'm surprised he didn't offer up John and Yoko.
Oh, my.
With their Christmas song.
All right.
Well, thank you, Bruce.
Yes, Bruce, thank you. Indeed, that was a good one. Tony, I think we got some people to thank, and then we're going to let our good friend Mark go.
Yes, we are. We are?
Yeah,
I thought we're keeping him for the next show.
Oh, yeah, Misery. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, Todd, because at this point of the show,
I get
there's
a union break here sooner or later.
No. We're going to strip you down and have Billy paint
circus
you.
peanuts.
Yeah, there. All you can eat.
That's a big old thing, too.
Yes, it is. That's right, Todd. There's a special group of people we love to thank. These are our executive producers. Now, what's an executive producer? An executive producer makes the show possible. How do you become one? Head over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Become a member, a sponsor, a patron, a hero, a friend of the podcast. Mm-hmm. Each level comes with some very nice thank you gifts. And I do mean very nice.
We try.
But as an
And great giveaways.
And, the giveaways? Circus peanuts. We're giving circus peanuts away. Maybe. They'll be kind of stale by the time.
Keep going, Tony.
In addition to all that great stuff, there's one thing more. Jared, what would that be? You get to have
your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers. Vader and Pedals, John Halverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D., Richard Kendall, James White, Motander Guitars, Anthony Gemolero, Bill Gola Guitars, John Esterly, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Senchuk, Ken Sayers, Doug Christ, Darren Gregory, Tom Barazin, Rusty Sneeden, Ralph Gottschalk from Wonderful Audio Technology. What? Mm-hmm. Don Kloss, Gregory Randall, Brett Hogarth, Eric Hemmer, Stuart George, Michael Furman, James Bell, James Romer, James and James, Cameron Pampas, David Tyndall, Trevor Ellenberg, and Christopher Logan.
I love that list.
Oh, but there's more, Todd, because there's a special group of executive producers. We call them our Grand Poobahs.
Yes.
They wear a fez upon their head.
Yes.
Whilst listening to the podcast.
Yes, and they're located at a special coop sitting atop the last remaining Spires restaurant in the country.
Where's that?
I don't know. It's there, though.
It's there somewhere. Well, they'll be there. Drinking some orange liquid of some sort.
Go, Tony.
So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs. Tommy Manasco, Ricardo Igareda, David Kaminga, Brandon Wound Pickups, Hex Matos, Michio Murakishi, Bob Crouch, Jack Cadian, Sam Jett, Tyler K.C. Rhines, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, James Pennington, Steve Keys, Cody Foster, Science of Sound, Brian Robison, Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, Michael Van Zant, Tim Nowak, Jonathan Daly, Martin Cliff, Sean S. David Poe, Billy Spitfire Unlimited, Congregation Gear Demos, Paul Von Eppinger, Scott Sullivan, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups, Matt Hart, Enrico Fernando, Moon Guitars, Adam Johnson, and Eric Edwards.
Oh, man. Thank you guys so much. We're going into the new year. And if you're thinking about something that's like, hey, I want to do something this new year, you know what? Be a patron. Support the show. Keep this going. And we'll thank you for it.
Yes, we
Promise.
will.
We're going to have so many great new giveaways in this upcoming year. I know it. I can feel it in my bones.
Yes, you can.
All right. We need to first say a humongoid thank you to Mark for joining us tonight and sharing so much of your history and wisdoms and silliness. We love that.
Above all.
Yes. So thank you for being here tonight.
And my opinions that are going to get me in trouble with manufacturers all over the place.
No.
Open conversation.
They don't listen to it.
Now, all right, plug time. Where can people go to see the things that you're involved in?
Trademarkguitars.com, thegodsusa.com.
With a Z.
with a Z, and Guitar Knobs is not with a Z.
No.
Could be.
Could be.
Could
Be
be.
a whole lot cooler if it was.
Absolutely. it
Oh,
would, yeah.
man.
It's funny, our store in Tulsa was called Cupcakes with a Z. Kupcakz. My wife hated it, but everybody loved it. Anyway, the GodsUSA.com and trademarkguitars.com, and I think that's about all I got to plug at
Sounds
this
good.
point.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Cool.
Well, keep your ears out for what Mark's doing in the future. And Tony, how about yourself?
Head over to pickguardian.com. Check out some of the things that I do. But you know what I do? I do
Mostly
custom work.
custom work.
So shoot me an email. Let me know what you're trying to do, what you're trying to look like.
Sure.
Make your guitar your own.
Okay.
Would you do that?
I'll try.
Do that for me, please.
Yes, I might actually do that over again.
Yes.
I'll tell you about it after. I have an idea.
He has an
Anyways.
idea.
Oh boy!
All right, Moan and Rob.
Like he's like pointing at me randomly.
Yeah.
I get my own theme song. I like that. Okay, that's cool. Madcowamplification.com, Instagram, Facebook. That's about it.
Right. Go watch and listen to Rob moan about amplifiers.
I don't only moan.
All right. You can shoot me an email, Todd at theguitarknobs.com. You can also DM me on Instagram, where I think you'll have maybe even better luck. At Guitar Knobs, we'd love to hear what you're up to, what you like about the show. Share anything you want. We will listen. And also,
Hey, how about some Would You Rathers?
Exactly. We got a whole pile of them recently. I want a whole pile more. So do that. Check out the Valentinos wherever you can download music or listen to music or whatever. And I think we'll just leave it. What are you doing?
Your stomper.
The Stomper. If you've got a Line 6 HX Stomp, specifically that one, that's the one that seems to sell more than anything. And you need to protect your knobs, people. Get yourself a Stomp
Keep them safe.
to protect your Stomp. Mm-hmm. Yes. At flinteffects.com. $10. What's it going to hurt? Just do it. And it'll look cool, too. All right. Thank you, one and all. Have a fantastic guitar week and a new year whenever this lands. And subscribe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And beyond. And then what you think the future
I tend to go off on tangents. I'll tell you now, my stories get to be way too long sometimes.
If we need to take a little break, stretch your legs, use the bathroom, anything like that.
I just go in my pants.
I could pee.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't think what they were called.
Clap.
Yeah. Hold on. Okay, thank you.
We'll
just make you
edit
there any
the
of
hell
those
out of it.
left?
No big deal.
There's a bunch left.
Careful. What? Yeah. Give us a clap. Okay.
Yeah. Dude,
Yeah, you like that? You
I like it.
you're going to hear that at like 45 minutes and 20 seconds. You're going to hear like a badger rustling through your garbage in the background. I knew as you were doing it, I was like, the hell, it's way underneath the desk, and I could hear it clear as day.
What are you trying to say, Todd?
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know.
Okay,
ahead.
well, that was brought to you by Todd.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah.
There.
I love the clap. You know, at one point in time.
His setup in there is freaking nice. He's got a recording studio in there and stuff. You asked me too fast. I can't remember. It's yeah. The guy's name. Oh well. Okay. Now that we've talked about the state of the music industry,
All right.
We're going to do it
I
again.
hope you recorded all that.
All right.
That's a buck cent.
Whoa.
And away we go. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.